Usually it takes me some time to put together a review since I like to have a significant amount of hands-on time with the product. That way I'm able to give you an honest opinion while also making sure I'm explaining my experience in the best way. I've been using the galaxybuds 3 and getting as much hands-on time with them as possible, but I recently decided to completely stop using them because I feel that Samsung overlooked a huge detail when creating these buds. This one aspect made it so hard to use these buds that I actually just scrapped the comparison I had going on between them and the Buds 2 Pro. So what is it that made me so sure of my opinion enough to make this review? Let's dig in and find out. The first thing you'll notice is that the case has a new vertical design, which now has the earbuds standing upwards instead of laying horizontally like with Samsung's previous buds. This case is made out of a slippery plastic material that kind of requires you to make sure you have a firm grip on it so you don't drop it. The charging port and the new pairing button are located on the bottom of the case, while the wireless charging coils are located at the back of the case. I have to give it to Samsung for finally listening to consumers and making an earbud case that comes with a stronger magnet. You can see here that I'm actually shaking these with force and they just won't fall out, period. Now, of course, that's a different story if you drop them on the ground, but nonetheless, it's nice to see the attention to detail here. Upon opening the case, you'll find the buds tucked in their cradle. These buds are the open ear type, which means that there is a speaker that has no silicone tips attached to the end of them. For some, like myself, this means you'll spend a lot of time trying to figure out how to get a good seal so that you can actually hear what you're listening to without either getting a bunch of air flowing into your ears or environmental noise around you. This is something that could potentially make things a hassle since you might have to continuously try pushing these into your ears depending on factors like the shape of your ears or moisture that is present. Speaking of moisture, these earbuds have gained the highest IP rating of any Samsung earbuds to date, with an IP57 rating for dust and moisture resistance. The triangular stems that protrude are easy to use once you get the hang of the controls, but can become slightly uncomfortable using them given the moderate amount of force you have to use in order to evoke the controls within them. Operation of these buds is pretty simple once you get the hang of it. Playing, pausing, going to the next track, or back to the previous track are all done by squeezing the bottom of the stem, and I do mean giving it some force like I briefly mentioned before. I say that because in the instructional tutorial given, it states that you have to pinch the stems, but doesn't necessarily say that you have to give it any force. So this might confuse some, since as you can see here, if I take two fingers and pinch like it says, nothing really happens. Whereas if I give it some force, you can see that the music will play and pause. In order to go to the next track, you're going to want to squeeze twice in a row. And if you thought squeezing the stem 3 times to go back to the previous track was what you had to do, then you're right, basically. At least controlling the volume is as simple as sliding your fingers down or up on the stem, which you'll also hear an audible click that lets you know you're doing the right thing. This can be done on either of the earbuds and does not require any Galaxy Labs setup like Samsung's previous buds have. Alternatively, you could just skip all of the physical controls and control these buds strictly via voice with the voice commands feature. I found this to work very well even in moderately noisy environments. Play music. This feature may come off like a gimmick, but I can see this being really useful for those times when I'm washing dishes and don't really want to reach up to my earbuds to change tracks or pause. When it comes to noise cancellation, I tend to judge it in 2 ways. What I can actually hear when nothing is playing, and how much I have to turn up the volume until I can't hear what's around me. In this case, I ended up doing 2 very random tests to find out how good the noise cancellation is on these buds. The first test involved me using my fan to try and simulate some low noise, and when the music was off, you probably guessed, I could still hear it. When the music was on, I had to turn the volume up to about 60 before the fan was completely drowned out. For my second test, I had a few ideas to try and simulate a loud environment, but settled on the complete randomness of going through the car wash. I'm pretty sure it's obvious that when no music was playing, nothing was blocked out. I heard literally everything around me. But interestingly enough, when music was playing, I wasn't even able to fully block out all of the noise, even with turning the volume up all the way to the max. I could still hear the brushes, especially the blow dryer at the end. So just know that if you are in a really noisy environment, you may not be able to block out all of the surrounding noise around you, especially if you cannot get a good seal, which with these buds, you're probably not going to. Before we do move on, I have to give attention to a huge problem that occurs when using the ANC on these buds. For some reason, the left ear would make this extremely high-pitched and disorienting tone each time I enabled active noise cancellation from the app and continued to do so every few seconds. I'm not sure what the heck is going on here, but Samsung really needs to fix this, as it could really throw someone off because of how unexpected it is. Now, I know this sounds crazy, but at the risk of losing hearing in my left ear, here is an example of what I'm talking about. One feature that is missing, or at least not stated anywhere, is the ambient sound feature. I don't know if this is because Samsung hasn't updated the Buds 3 to use it, but it's no longer here as it was on something like the Buds 2 Pro. The only thing I have been able to find that kind of mimic the feature is turning off active noise cancellation altogether, which allowed me to hear things around me clear, but not as clear as using something like the ambient sound feature. I suppose that one of the most important parts of any earbuds is how well their microphones pick up sound. So I have put together 3 tests here, which consist of a very noisy environment, a moderately noisy environment, and a relatively quiet but not completely environment. Instead of talking about the mic quality, I would rather you just listen to the samples coming up and pass judgment on those for yourself. Okay, so first test here. Near this little waterfall. Waterfalls are pretty loud, so this should suffice as a, what these mics would sound like in a very loud environment test. And hopefully these microphones are actually improved. I think Samsung made that one of their points. But if not, blame them, not me. This is what it's going to sound like when you're in a really consistently noisy environment. Alright, so here's what I would call a moderately noisy environment, because there's nothing immediately near me that is making noise, but it's still pretty noisy. So hopefully the microphones can get through this and they sound at least decent. Like, these are not the pros, so I don't know how much you can expect, but Samsung did boast about microphone quality, so how do they sound? Let me know. Or don't let me know if that's good enough for you. Okay, so here is a relatively quiet area. The only noise should be the tires of the cars behind me on the road, but relatively quiet either way. Most of the times people are going to use buds in like a really quiet area or some area with noise they don't expect. So it's just quieter than the other 2 areas I did, for sure. So how do these microphones sound? Do they sound good? Do they sound clear? They better. They definitely better. Okay, so I almost forgot to do a wind test. And this is obviously artificial wind or air, whatever you want to call it. But this is how the buds should sound if you're in something like a windstorm or something like that. So I don't know how this sounds. Maybe it'll sound good. If not, again, blame Samsung. The audio coming out of these when listening to media is what I would call a little better than decent. You can definitely hear the separation of the highs, mids, and lows, but it isn't going to be at the level of detail you'd expect from something that has a more robust speaker setup. For those looking for heavy-hitting bass, you'll be disappointed here, and that's even with the customization available to you within the Wear app. We do have to remember though that Samsung uses a one speaker solution to project everything here, which isn't necessarily a bad thing and should be good and suffice for people who aren't looking to spend money on a more advanced model like the Buds 3 Pro. But just know that if you're someone that is looking for that significance in sound, these buds may not be the ones you want. To hear an example of what these buds do sound like though, I've prepared two audio tests for you. I'm never really sure how effective these things are, but I've been chewed out for not including them before, so I guess it's better than nothing though. You're definitely going to want to lower your volume here before going ahead, since I will not be controlling the volume for this section. So go ahead and do that right now so you can't blame me later for any potential or possible hearing loss that could occur.
Yeah, I've been running and running to keep it 100. It's all that I wanted, but lately I don't get the stomach. The higher the summit, the harder the plummet. They know me all over this planet. I'm just a man and I can't understand it. Proud that I win and I did it myself. Probably wouldn't if I got the help. Hearing subliminals all on myself. Feel like I'm breaking, I'm falling to hell. Told me I'm sick and I tell her, oh well. Rather be dead than to know that I failed. Live for the chase, life is a race. I'm out of space, let me get on my face. I got a taste, well the whole plate. Finna get laced if you step out of place. Like, first off, you don't run nothing. All talking, your team bluffing. My squad, we all dream crushing. We ain't rushing, no discussion. All I know is us made for this. Paid for this, yeah, slave for this. Get it down and I'ma get it right. Get on sight like. Down and I'ma get it right. Get on sight like. Down and I'ma get it right. Get on sight like. never really know when you're gonna go. Why you gotta put another foot in front of yours? Mirror them toes, carry them close. I was never one to care about my mentos. I was like froze, now I'm far. Give me that smoke, but I can't get high. We do the most, here to inspire. Doing what I'm supposed, but I can't get tired. Run for your life every night. See in the dark, blind by the light. I got the spark, I got the pipes. All of my arts coming to life. Had to face my fears while I chase my peers, and I found my spot. About time that I found myself. I've been out here walking that walk. Like, first off, you don't run nothing. All talking, your team bluffing. My squad, we all dream crush it. We ain't rush it, no discussion. All I know is I was made for this. Paid for this, yeah, slave for this. Been down and I'ma get it right. Dead on sight like, first off, you don't run nothing. All talking, your team bluffing. My squad, we all dream crush it. We ain't rush it, no discussion. All I know is I was made for this. Paid for this, yeah, slave for this. Been down and I'ma get it right. Dead on sight like. And I'ma get it right. Dead on sight like. Big down and I'ma get it right. Dead on sight like.
When it comes to testing the battery, I wanted to initially do a proper battery test with active noise cancellation on while playing some media, but unfortunately I couldn't do that because the noise cancellation wouldn't function properly like I mentioned before. I was able to do a test without noise canceling though, and after 2 hours and 41 minutes, I was left with about 68%. After that test was done, I left the buds not connected to my phone overnight so I could see how fast they would actually charge and drain the battery, of course, to do that. And at that point, they were at 39%, and with a 10-minute charge, the buds were at 67%. Unfortunately, this is all I can say about battery life and charging though, so sorry. With all of the technical and important stuff out of the way, the last thing we need to talk about here is the big issue that made me stop using these earbuds and the reason as to why I can't flat out recommend them. If you've been listening to this review, I've actually been alluding to this problem, but it comes down to the fit and seal of these earbuds. The overall problem here consists of two things: the slippery plastic material these are made of and the fact that the speaker doesn't have the silicone tips and protruding speakers like with Samsung's previous buds and the Buds 3 Pro. Both of these factors make it so that you're either spending time pushing these buds further and further into your ear canals, or as much into your ear canal as you can get, or adjusting them in some other uncomfortable way. The ironic thing about this is that on Samsung's website, they did mention that the Buds 3 have an improved fit, and even in the Wear app, there is the adjust the sound to your fit feature that I showed you before. Honestly, it just seems like Samsung's engineering team didn't really think this through, as it would have made such a difference for them to design the tips in the same way they designed the Buds 3 Pro and literally every single Samsung earbud before the Buds 3 series came out. All in all, this is the exact reason that I can't recommend these earbuds. And while I'll be returning my pair and waiting for Samsung to fulfill my Buds 3 Pro order in hopes that those will make a better impression on me than these did. That is pretty much all I have to say and all I can say about these buds. I do definitely wish that I could have kept these, especially since I only paid $30 for them with trade-in, but given my experience, they're not even worth that much for me. If you do decide to pick up a pair of these and they actually do fit comfortably, please let me know. I would definitely be interested in knowing that. But other than that, wherever you are in the world, have a great day, a great afternoon, a great evening, or a great night, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching as always.